An SEC defensive coordinator said some craziness. He said John Mettauer is too small?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you all for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there for tuning and subscribing to the show. You can find us wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to, as well as here on YouTube. So make sure you hit that like, subscribe button, and the bell notification so you know when new episodes drop. I am Jay from Unfair Sports. You can check out my channel, Unfair Sports. John is out because it's his birthday, and so we're going to talk about a few things. We got a special guest, Gordy from Locked On SEC, joins us in the second and third segment. He's going to talk his expectations for Oklahoma, a little bit of John Mettauer and how he compares to the other teams, and his SEC favorite. But we're going to lead off with this, though. ESPN dropped some intel about the quarterbacks in the 2025 season, and there was a note that was added about John Mettauer that got your boy a little like, wait, what? Excuse me? What's going on here? That I had questions 100%. And so this is what it reads out. They talk about, of course, how he generated so much attention. John Mettauer with the statistics that he had at Washington State. I mean, it was, at Washington State. So they're like, yeah, whatever. But he led FBS respectfully with 44 touchdowns overall. And there were some quotes from some defensive coordinators in the SEC, anonymous, of course, because they don't want to put themselves out there, especially if you end up playing against the kid. You don't want to put, a target on your back. So they didn't really say who they was, but they came out with some anonymous statements. Now, here's the first one that I did appreciate. He said he's a triple threat. He can throw it, he can scramble, and they can call runs for him. Those kinds of guys are the ones hard to defend. Very fearless. He's got all the moxie and the intangibles to go with it. In which that's what we've heard about everyone that's praised Oklahoma has been the expectation is John Mettauer will translate to this conference. The question is, will he? We've got to see it on the field. We've got to wait for the action. We get this week to kind of figure something out with Illinois State and get a quote-unquote preview. But Michigan's going to be really the game that tells us, because that is some pretty elite overall talent. Michigan has put together a pretty solid team over the years. And so now we're going to see if Oklahoma matches up with guys that you could say would be 1-for-1 type of matchup, right? Well, the SEC, of course, is a little bit different. It's going to be tough. But a lot of the talking heads out there saw something in John Mettauer that most didn't. And they believe that he's got the approach to make the jump. And so another coach that he faced again said this quote. This coach said he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. A coach who faced him in 2024. If he can stay healthy because they run him like a running back, they'll be a much better team. He's the type of guy who can change your whole culture. And that's the expectations we have for John Mettauer here at Oklahoma, is that with the level of defense we had last season, all you need is a serviceable offense. And if you've got a serviceable offense, guess what happens? This team's going to be really good. Period. Point blank. Argue with somebody else's mom about it. Because we all know that is the one thing that Oklahoma struggled with, was not having an offense to keep the defense out of really, really awkward situations. The defense answered a lot of questions that we needed to have answered, and had a conversation with my guy Colin Kennedy over 247. And the one thing he thought about was this defense was a lot better than people really understood. And this is something to be appreciated. Keep your eyes on it. Enjoy it. Because the defense is going to be even more solid when the offense can do its part. And we expect the offense, with the good coaching and everything, to give us that. But then I saw this quote from an SEC defensive coordinator that I thought was kind of funny. He said that he doesn't look very big. An SEC defensive coordinator said the human body can only take so many hits, and if you're not a big dude in this league, it'll take its toll. So I totally understand why they said that. The look of it is, they say they don't think he looks very big. Let me give you this. This is the solid numbers that even ESPN had in this article as well, is that he's solidly built at 6'1", 224 pounds. 6'1", 224 pounds. You know who else was around 6'1", 220 pounds that played in the SEC back in the day? Jalen Hurts. And the comparison that I have given for John Mettauer, if you've heard me talk about him on numerous platforms, is that John Mettauer reminds me of a Jalen Hurts that throws the ball more. That's really it. Hurts was putting up over 4,000 yards and 1,200 yards rushing. He was second in the Heisman Trophy voting when he came to Oklahoma. He just threw the ball a lot more than he did before. But that was the big thing, is that Hurts wasn't really known as a thrower. He had to get better at that. But he was good enough. I mean, he threw for 4,000 yards. It's all kind of an oxymoron if you really think about it. But John Mettauer reminds me of his game. It's that John Mettauer throws more and runs a little bit less. Hurts is more likely to tuck and go outside of design runs, where Mettauer is more likely to kind of scramble around, find the open guy, and try to throw it, or he's going to immediately tuck and go. Like, he's not going to dance around and then go. Hurts was more like that, but Hurts also, like I said, he ran for over 1,000 yards as a quarterback. Same thing with Kyler. Mettauer probably can do something similar. We've seen that happen before in the SEC. Jaden Daniels did something that crazy, and he's a lot more slight in size in comparison to John Mettauer. He's taller, but he's also very much more slight. If Mettauer does a really good job of avoiding big hits, which his game kind of produces that, I can see that John Mettauer is going to walk out there and remain durable. He's just got to not get hit like crazy. And because this offense is built to get rid of the ball pretty quickly, I don't anticipate or see him getting leveled like most people are going to try to, predict. So I thought that was fascinating that this anonymous coach had that to say about John Mettauer going into this game, into the season, because what about John Mettauer's game makes you think that he's going to go out there and get himself hit on a regular basis? Now, Diego Pavia plays a game similar to that, and we all know that Diego Pavia, also size-wise, not too far off from what John Mettauer is. I mean, Sellers is a lot bigger. Lenore Sellers is up there at 240 pounds. So he's got a good 20 pounds on him, especially with some additional height. But none of these quarterbacks are ones that want to go out there and just run through somebody's face. That's the one thing you want to avoid. Diego Pavia, literally, his whole game is predicated around his ability to run. Last season, as a rusher for Vanderbilt, he ran for 800 yards. He's 6'2", inch less, roughly 20 pounds lighter. But no one's questioning his ability to run. More so because he's proven it. I mean, 2 years in a row, he ran for over 800 yards. So we know that Diego Pavia likes to find a way to get to the open seam and make the run. The thing for me is that I think that John Mettauer can do at least, at minimum, the exact same thing that Diego Pavia did, while also throwing the ball a lot more. And that's nothing against Diego Pavia. His game is predicated around his ability to run. I think John Mettauer can also do that exact same thing. So I find this comment funny, the thought of the human body can only take so many hits, when we all know that John Mettauer is going to find a way to not get hit. Chris Gordy from Locked On SEC joins us, and we're going to talk about what he thinks about the Sooners going forward. We'll dive into that here on Locked On Sooners. Hey, Locked On Sooner fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use our limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just for making their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or even an e-gift card to Amazon and other brands. So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offer varies for users and locations. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keeps you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support makes the whole process smoother. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And once again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there for tuning in and subscribing to the show. Follow myself at Unfair Sports and follow John at John9Williams on X and wish him a happy birthday. But also, on top of that, got us something special for you all. We have a survey that we would like you all to take. So we have this important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also use the link on the screen here or the QR code. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Hey, make some money. So again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find a link in the show notes. Thank you for helping us out. And now let's chop it up with Chris Gordy from Locked On SEC. We got Chris Gordy from Locked On SEC here to join us to talk some Oklahoma ball. He's got to give us a little love on accident. Chris, how you doing today?
What's up, Jay? Good to be on, man.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to take some time to join us. We got to talk. The season's about to start. It is game week. The weather is beautiful everywhere. It looks like everybody's enjoying some 70s and 80s, and it's a little cold front, but this is football weather. And so, Gordy, I had to ask you, now that we're in this week, all of the hype's calmed down, everybody's giving their opinions. How are you feeling about Oklahoma Sooners, and what's your expectations for them going into this season?
Well, I mean, I think the offense has to be better this year. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. It was so inconsistent and not good last year, and everybody knows about the injuries and all that. But, you know, when you keep saying that, it starts to sound like to other people excuses, right? I mean, it's, you know, people have to deal with injuries, and obviously Oklahoma had to deal with more than anybody last year. But you bring in the hype of John Mettauer, and obviously, you know, we all know what he did last year, and obviously Ben Arbuckle as the OC coming with him. I think everybody feels pretty good that this offense is going to look much better. But that said, I mean, against Illinois State, I mean, even if you beat them down, I don't know how much we can take away from it. Because I was this week, a year ago, I was in Las Vegas getting ready to watch USC and LSU and was at one of the sports books watching that Friday night game between Oklahoma and Temple. And I watched Oklahoma run up 400 yards of offense and 50 points or whatever they scored. It was like, wow, yeah. Okay, Oklahoma looks pretty good. And then, you know, this thing progressed and it didn't so much anymore. So like I said, I think you just want to see them come out this week against Illinois State and just, you want to see the passing game there. You want to see Mettauer have a nice day. You want to see what this backfield looks like. I know a lot was made earlier in the week on, oh my God, the running back depth chart. Why is Jay not number 3? I think all that will settle itself in time. But, you know, if it is Javonte Barnes' time to shine, then go shine. Let him go show what he can do. But again, you know, it's one of those tough ones where you're supposed to beat up on a team like this, but you just want to see those missing ingredients that were missing for so much of last year.
Yeah, and that's basically the mindset of all the Sooner fans as well as Sooner Nation. So you kind of echo exactly how all of us and our sentiment is. We want to see it. We want to see it as well. And just like you said, in that first game against Temple on a Friday night, you got to see Oklahoma run up some scores. I mean, there's a lot of defense in that game, a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks. You saw a lot of everything you wanted to see from the defensive side of the ball, but the offense did not look like it was really in a sync. I mean, the big thing in that game was the third down conversions, which was awful. I actually lost my mind after that game talking about that. So if there's anything that I think I could see coming from this game, is that if we struggle once again in third down conversions, I think that this experiment's over. That's basically the only thing I'm looking at.
Yeah, and again, all the newness, right? I mean, a new play caller, a new quarterback, new receivers, right? I mean, who's going to be that guy? I was super excited to see Deion Burks last year, and I know that the injuries hampered him, but at times he looks like he could be a special player, and so now hopefully we get a full season of him in the SEC to show what he can do. I think he could be a big time playmaker in this league if he can stay healthy all year. Satania coming over from Arkansas, what's that look like? I just think that there's a lot of pieces here that we kind of want to know what this identity is going to be. What are you? Are you going to be a throw it 40 times a game team? Are you going to be a 50-50 run pass balance team? I mean, I don't know. We don't know what this offense is going to dictate here. We know what it was at Washington State, but that was playing a bunch of slappies. What does this look like in the SEC against more top tier talent where you're facing some more 300-pound defensive linemen coming at you? You're facing some more 4.2, 4.3 speed guys on the outside that can hang with the receivers. True. So I'm just curious what all that's going to look like. But, and then the other side on the defense, you lose some big pieces in Bowman and, linebacker Stutzman. I mean, those guys were leaders, and, it's easy to go, oh, well, it's next man up. It's next man up. Okay, but those were two guys who were very important pieces of that defense last year. And you talk about when you're audibling or changing plays and adjusting, that's where that leadership comes in, and guys who can make the calls. But, getting our Mason Thomas back is huge. Kip Lewis I've heard good things about. So, I think the leadership is there, or guys ready to step up. And then, the new additions like Marvin Jones and Kendall Daniels, and what do they bring? So, again, I'm high on Oklahoma. It's just, you got to weather the storm. I think when you're in the SEC now, you really have to take this thing week by week. But it's going to be hard not to get excited, Jay, though. If we come out of this weekend and Mateer throws for a ton of yards, I think we're going to, people will quietly be saying, oh, Heisman, is that in the conversation? Like, it's what we do these days. We overreact to what we see in 1 week.
Yeah, no, and with that, like looking at the game, Oklahoma was 1 for 12 on third down efficiency. Like that to me was basically our red flag of, okay, there may not be something there, and you only get 378 yards even though you win 51-3. That's a question. So no, I agree with you there. You saw something, you wondered, but there were signs for all of us when we looked at it. Now, let me ask you this, Gordy, though. If hypothetically Oklahoma does end up in the college football playoff, a potential chance, what would be the path? As we look at the schedule here, this schedule is no joke. We know that Oklahoma is considered having one of, if not the toughest schedule in college football, with Michigan coming to town, and then, traveling to South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, LSU coming to town, Ole Miss, potentially something, Texas, of course, Red River. When you look at this schedule, if there was a path for Oklahoma to make it to the playoffs, how would they get there?
Yeah, I think what you want to happen is, and I made this prediction last year, I may have just been a year ahead of myself. I thought there was a chance if things had hit for Oklahoma last year, and, look, I missed on some guys. I was very high on Jackson Arnold. I thought the talent was there. Now, we may see it at Auburn this year and might go, oh, that's the guy that we were expecting to see at Norman. But I had a bold prediction last summer. I like to go out on a limb and go, all right, what's a bold prediction I can have? And my bold prediction was that Oklahoma would be coming into Baton Rouge the last week of the season, both LSU and Oklahoma at 9-2, and the winner was going to advance to the playoff. Well, I might have just been a year ahead. That might be what happens this year on November 29th when LSU visits Norman. There could be 2 9-2 teams, and the winner is fighting for a playoff spot. Now, the committee has changed their, how they evaluate things. Strength of schedule means a little bit more. So maybe 9-3 does get you in. So maybe they both get in the playoff if it's a good battle. But I just think that could be a scenario. And so can you weather the storm and only have 2 losses? Look, that week 2 game against Michigan is going to be big. Bryce Underwood, man, you talk about dominoes to fall. Bryce Underwood was committed to LSU through and through. And then, the billionaire comes in the 11th hour, writes a big check, and now he's at Michigan. Well, now it's Oklahoma's problem. Now, if he was at LSU this year, he wasn't going to be playing, Oklahoma this year. He was going to be sitting on the bench. But now he's a starter at Michigan. And what does that look like? Well, get him week 2. Maybe it's the right time, right? Maybe he's still grasping the offense and a true freshman and all that. So, that one to me is a must win for Oklahoma if they're going to get to the playoff. I think they have to beat Michigan. You're allowed 2 losses. I think your 2 losses have to come in the SEC. And, Red River, man, I've said it, like Oklahoma has owned that rivalry and they were owning the Big 12 for so many years in recent years. So I feel like that's one that Oklahoma is going to play Texas tough. We'll see what Texas looks like when we get to that game. But, if anybody can scheme up a defense versus a young, inexperienced Arch Manning, I would expect Brent Venables is going to do that. So that one I put as a 50-50. At South Carolina is going to be a tough one. We'll see what Tennessee is by the time OU gets there. I mean, maybe Joey Aguilar's been benched by that point because he's so bad.
Yeah.
That's a storyline that could happen. At Alabama, I'm telling you right now, I'm just not a buyer in Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's an elite coach. And so I think Alabama could be due for a 3 to 4 loss season this year. And so, look, it's hard to win in Tuscaloosa. It's a place they rarely lose, but, never say never. So, if I'm picking 2 losses right off the bat, if I'm giving you the Red River and you find a way to beat Texas, maybe the losses are at South Carolina and at Alabama, and then you go into the LSU game with a possible 10 win on the line.
Ooh, that's some bold takes right there. Okay, we're talking with Chris Gordy over on Locked On Sooners. We're going to ask some questions. John Mettauer, quarterback in the SEC. How does he match up? We'll talk about that more here on Locked On Sooners. College football is back, and I could not be more excited, as y'all all know. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, just all of that, man. There's just nothing like college football. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime. The app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to secure last-minute tickets and at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Like me, I'm pulling up the Gametime app right now. I can check a few taps, get to this Oklahoma game for very, very cheap. There's always people selling their tickets, so there's always something to check out. And I love the zone deals too. Pick a section, Gametime picks the seats, and boom, you save big. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. And thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there for tuning in and subscribing to the show. You can find us wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. We've got Chris Gordy from Locked On SEC here. Gotta ask you, my man. John Mettauer comes in, was one of the top quarterbacks in the country statistically. 44 touchdowns is pretty big. 3,100 passing yards, 800 rushing yards, massive numbers. How do you feel he compares to quarterbacks in the SEC as we got to see a QB-OC combo make a transition from, I guess, a Mountain West with New Mexico State's Diego Pavia and Tim Beck come in to Vanderbilt and look pretty darn solid with some of their wins? How do you feel about John Mettauer compared to everybody else in the SEC this year?
I was very high on him. I got to speak with him at the Manning Passing Academy a few weeks ago, and very mature guy. I love, just very thoughtful guy, thought about his answers, had some humor. I asked him about Ben Arbuckle joining him, and, right off the bat, his joke was, man, I can't escape this guy. He just follows me everywhere. And, I thought it was really funny and just a very personable guy. I was like, this is a personality I think is going to fit, in the SEC. He told me how he's been adjusting in Norman, how all the teammates took him in immediately as soon as he got there and all that. The problem is, as high as I was on him and feeling good coming out of that and looking at his stats and going, gosh, the running ability and all this, somebody said, now go look at who he did it against. And I had to go back and look and went, yeah, I mean, you can't do anything about the schedule that Washington State played last year, but you do look at it and go, okay, well, was he really tested? And so that's where I look at it and go, this is a big boy schedule he's coming into now. So, but then I watch some of the film, and a lot of it is concepts. A lot of it, you could even argue he's going to have way better talent around him than he had at Washington State. This is better receivers, better O-line, better everything. So So there's that element of it too. But I like him. He's tough. His running ability, he's not afraid to take a hit. That's what you need to play in the SEC. You're going to get hit in this league. Do you bounce back when you make a mistake? Is it sticking in your mind for the next 10 plays, or are you flipping the page going, put that behind you? You got to go operate now. Those are all elements that I'm looking for out of Mettauer. And again, what does it look like when you get into SEC play? I think most Texas fans and Oklahoma fans I've talked to, some of them are, big bad SEC and all this. Most of them I talked to after year one went, oh no, I get it now. Like it's when you have to play Tennessee and then Alabama, and there's no break, right? There's no respite. It's, and the minute you let your guard down, that's when you get beat in this league. So I think most Oklahoma fans know that now. I think Brent Venables and his staff understand it, and it is a one game at a time mentality you have to have. But all that said, again, I don't want to disparage the opponents that he faced last year, because you can't do nothing about it. But I am still very high on Mettauer. I think there's a chance we're looking back at the end of this year and saying he was a top 5 quarterback. Now, what does that look like, right? I mean, Garrett Nussmeier could have 4,000 yards and 38 touchdown passes, but LSU could have 3 losses. Some people are going to ding him. Whereas, Ty Simpson could, I don't know, he could have a mediocre year, but Alabama's 11-1. So you never know, how are we judging this? Austin Simmons is going to throw for a ton of yards at Ole Miss, because that's what Lane Kiffin does. But I'd say when it's all said and done, if we're looking back and saying Mettauer had a top 5 season as a quarterback in the SEC, I don't want to just say passing, because I think the rushing yards are part of it. But, we look back and say he had a top 5 performance in the SEC. I mean, if things must have went sideways defensively, if they're not at least sitting there with 9-10 wins hoping for a playoff spot.
So do you think that he can outdo what Diego Pavia did last season? Diego Pavia had 2,200 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 4 picks, 800 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. You think he can outdo that 3,000 total combined yards and 28 touchdowns?
I think he'll have more passing yards, definitely. The rushing yards we'll see. Diego, that is his game. I mean, it's almost like there were games last year where he was run first, then look to pass. So I don't think we'll see that from Mettauer. But yeah, I mean, I think that's I think he'll have more passing yards. The Pavia thing's just tough, man, because we think back to the Alabama game, and yes, he was electric that night. But down the stretch of the season, there were some games where he wasn't as special. At Tennessee, they got out to the early lead, and then it got ugly fast. Against LSU, he had some moments. They had some not so great moments, and they lost that game in Baton Rouge. So, I just, I hate to make a comparison there, but I think the comparison works in that, yes, Pavia with Jerry Kill and that offense that they brought over from New Mexico did translate. And so if it's going to work with Mettauer and Arbuckle, yeah, I think there will be success there. But I put Mettauer a little bit higher. I say Pavia, great story, almost like rooting for the underdog. I think Mettauer is a legit quarterback that will have a legit season.
Okay, so you expect him to be able to actually throw and pass, throw, run, and be a true quarterback without it being a run-centric, a run-first guy, but be able to leverage his legs to help the offense extend things. I like that. I'd actually appreciate that. Okay, run out of time. I've got to ask you this, though, Gordy. Who's your favorite in the SEC right now? Who do you think is going to be in the championship game? Who do you think is going to win it?
I go back to SEC Media Days. I picked Georgia just because I thought, Kirby Smart, to me, gets the benefit of the doubt. I've been saying I think Texas takes a little bit of a step back. They're still super talented. I think the defense is awesome. I think Arch is going to be good, but I think it's going to be this. I think there's going to be dips, and it's going to be like a roller coaster. One week he's awesome. One week he maybe struggles a little bit. And, I think it maybe cost Texas a couple games. So, I picked Georgia and LSU to get to Atlanta. I had Georgia winning it. I could probably be talked into LSU winning it. But, a lot just depends on, does Georgia get back to – a lot of people are talking about Gunnar Stockton and say, what does he do and all this. They forget Carson Beck cost Georgia so much with those interceptions last year. Like, he had some great touchdown passes, some great moments, but God – every week there was a stretch where he threw like 2-3 interceptions a week. I don't think Gunnar Stockton does that. I think he protects the football a little bit more, tucks the ball, takes the sack when he has to, plays field position. And if that Georgia defense gets back to being that suffocating, dominant Georgia defense that we're used to under Kirby Smart, yeah, I think Georgia wins another SEC championship.
Okay, that's pretty bold and to the point. I can totally see where we give, I guess, Georgia the benefit of the doubt, while at the same time, they're basically going to be the favorite just about any time. They're the only winners of the SEC outside of LSU one time and then Alabama over the last few years.
But Texas
kind of is expected.
Texas has been the sexy pick. Like, they're the preseason number one. They're the darlings. That's the one that people are all picking. So, Georgia, I'm going out on a limb picking Georgia.
That is very true. You are going out on a limb, and Georgia now is the underdog in their mind. I guess, isn't that what Kirby Smart tries to put out there for everybody? That they're always doubted, they're always overlooked, even though they won back-to-back national championships. And everyone thinks they're going to win the conference every year.
The last championship, what was this? People were picking us to lose 4 games. It's like, nobody picked you to do. They found some rando on Bleacher Report that wrote a piece like, "Oh, I think Georgia loses 4 games." Like, Kirby's going to dig deep. He's going to find some like MySpace article that somebody picked him to lose 6 games,
Oh, yeah. He's living on Reddit right now, so he can or Facebook into the really bad AI groups of finding someone that's going to tell them that.
You see what these guys are saying about you? Like, no one is saying that. Stop.
No one's saying that. Okay, Gordy, let me ask you last thing. Where do you think Oklahoma finishes within the SEC? What ranking, what number do you see them finishing at now?
Gosh.
After all the convincing I gave you.
Yeah. So I gave you a hypothetical that they could be going for a 10th win last season. Let me give you what I really think is going to happen. I think it's an 8-4 season. I think it's an improvement over last year. I think they're just shy of a playoff, but I think you see much improvement this year. And so, what does that do? Does that save Venables' job? I think so. And then the questions are, where do you go from here? What's the future? I know a lot of people are high on Michael Hawkins. Coming in last year, got his chance to, some ups and some downs. He suffered the same fate as Jackson Arnold. It's like injuries everywhere. You can't even get a good read on what he is. But, that'll be interesting to see where they go into the 2025 offseason into 2026 on what this team's going to look like next year. But I think 8-4 is fine. I think you'll go to a nice bowl game. I think, it's an improvement over last year. It shows you can compete in the SEC. I think that's what ultimately people want to see out of Oklahoma this year.
I agree. That's the thing that matters the most. It's Chris Gordy, host of Locked on SEC. Please go check him out. Like, subscribe, watch his videos. I literally steal all of his takes to add to this show. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it, man.
No problem. And thank you all for joining us here on Locked on Sooners. Thank you for being part of the show. Please hit the like, subscribe, and the bell notification for your second listen. Of course, Locked on SEC is definitely one on there. Locked on College Football, as well as check out The Portal with Brian Smith if you need your fix on recruiting. So, for Chris, for John, I'm Jay Smith. We will talk to you all later. Boomer Sooner.